right, welcome to another episode of Mental Health Monday. I am giddy today because my sister from another mister is on with me,
Yes.
and I am talking about my guest at this time. She is not from North Carolina, but she is one of our favorite people from the inner marks of the Dynamite Download crew. She is somebody that likes Ted more than me. Her queen is my wife. She is also Queen Babyface as opposed to my Queen Heel. She is one of the best people to talk wrestling with, but also one of the most positive on the interwebs and on social media. She is none other than the Queen of Babyface, Lori Young. Woo!
Hello.
Excellent, Lori. Thank you so much.
What an intro. Oh,
Yes. I had to do the Kenny music, the whole
yeah.
North Carolina.
For sure.
Thanks so much for joining us today for the Mental Health Podcast. And one of the many reasons I brought you on, other than just my sister from another mister,
yes, always
is I wanted to talk about social media, because you and I met through social media, but also our love of wrestling. And again, yes, I have the banner. I'm sure inevitably we'll talk some wrestling, so the banner will pop on when that happens. But also, just remember how in such a sea of negativity online, specifically like Twitter, but in all social media, you remain a positive, cheerful force. Now, I know it's not easy, but you never seem to really get mired down in the negativity.
Right.
And is that kind of a philosophy that you have that you carry through life, or is that just something? Is it a struggle to do?
It's not a struggle at all, really. I mean, people will ask me questions like, how do you stay so positive? How you do, and it's just who I am. I would much rather be a part of the positive side of things than to stir up the negative. Just like it's so easy to be the negative person and have the negative point of view. I don't, and people get hurt along the way, right? So people, the negativity, it does affect people. So I would much rather encourage you. I would much rather build you up than to be a part of a side that tears people down. I've always been that way, and it's just, I enjoy seeing people succeed. I enjoy seeing good times people are having. I even if I'm not a part of it or had anything to do with it, I still love to see people happy.
Yeah.
So I would much rather be a part of that than the negative side of things.
Yeah, I wish us humans would celebrate each other's victories more than almost like wanting people to fail. And I feel like sometimes that seems to happen in society, let alone without social media, is sometimes as soon as we get a hero, we want to see them fall, or a lot of people do, instead of celebrating those victories. And I feel like in life, those people like yourself that enjoy other people's victories, we're happy for you when something happy happens for you, when something great happens for you. And it's kind of pays it forward.
I think it might be a bit of insecurity on people who are negative, that they may feel like there's not enough success for everyone, which is so not the case.
Yeah.
So,
the buffet is vast. The buffet of awesome is vast.
It really is. And if you want the potatoes, I'm going over here to get the meat.
I'll get the scripts. I'll go to the
so totally, yeah. I love people. I really do. And so many people, you see all these little memes and all these things that say, that they hate people. They're not people person. Like, I could never say that. Like, people, obviously we're human, so people frustrate one another, but I love what people bring to the table. I love the uniqueness that every person has. So I don't know. I just love around people. I love to hear stories from people. I love to see people laugh and be happy, and it's just so much easier for me.
Yeah, it's a positive, it's almost a perpetual feeling when you make someone else happy and you feel happy. It's like when you give somebody a gift and they love it, it's like I get a high off of that, of them liking something that I did for them. And it's not and I wrestle with, is it selfish? Am I only giving them the gift because I want to be happy? No, I like making them happy. I
Yes.
feel like sometimes, and I know Deb and I have talked about this, and Deb's tolerance for BS with people is very minimal. I tend to be a little more tolerant, but on the flip side is she's taught me when to stand up for myself too. Because
Right.
I think a lot of times I've been a doormat when situations, and Deb's like, she takes a, you need to tell this person where to go, and that kind of thing, and
Right.
and that's okay. I think, but I feel like sometimes I think people get negative about, like, they say they hate people, but a lot of times I wonder if it's because it's not because they truly hate, or they truly hate people. It's more that they're disappointed in when when human beings, humanity has the opportunity to do something right, or a person like kind of like the shopping cart thing. You go to a grocery store or something, and somebody doesn't put their shopping cart back. It's kind of like, that's such a small, minute thing,
Mhm.
but it's almost like you could have put it back, but you chose not to.
Sure.
That disappointment, and it's such a tiny thing, but those kind of things I think add up with some folks. And if you're not taking a step back and saying, hey, it's not affecting me, you don't know what's going on in their life. I think that's something. I think that it's something like that. But right, I think some people, they get lost in that whole negativity. Wouldn't you agree sometimes?
Right. Yes, they do, and it kind of becomes part of their life.
Yeah.
It's almost like a habit that you develop,
Interesting. Yes. Yes.
and sometimes people don't even realize that their first instinct is to be negative about something, so they just are. And it stems from a lot of things. It could be whatever. You had a bad day, you had a bad life, who knows.
Yeah.
But you always have a choice, I feel like, whether or not which side you want to travel.
So yeah, my last principal that I worked for at my last school, she had a quote like, "Have a good day or not, it's your choice." And at first I thought that was kind of fluff, but then I realized it is kind of a mindset. I mean,
Mhm.
having a pot, like, there's let's be honest, there's many days I wake up grumpy, and whether I get coffee or not,
Yeah.
but there is something to that whole perspective. Like, if you let the things if you let the things that happen to you affect your mood, then you're giving power to it.
Yes.
Where you can, like, the days where I finally said, I'm not, yeah, okay, that happened, but I'm just gonna move on. It's day's still gonna go. My day gets better. But when I dwell on those things, my day gets worse.
Yes, and your mind gets heavy. Your whole physical, your spiritual, all of it just gets heavy, and you're weighed down. And then next thing you know, like the only strength you have is to be a negative person. So
Yep. And I think just as your, like, positivity is contagious, like, I feed off your positivity, and I know we'll talk about you leaving Twitter, which probably a lot more people should do, not for any Elon Musk or political reasons, but for
sure.
the toxicity reasons. Because I think Twitter's always been kind of toxic. I think some folks say, oh, when Elon Musk took over, I think it's always kind of been kind of
Right.
rough.
Yeah.
And I think for me, Twitter seems like you're rewarded more for the negativity. It's kind of like in the news, like what the headline, the bad news gets the headlines, the bad news gets the eyeballs or the clicks. It's the same thing with Twitter. The controversy gets the interaction. I'd see you, or I would post something very pleasant, and I'm like, hey, that really enjoyed this. And it's like 3 or 4 people. But then I'll say something, and then one person will go, oh, that was stupid. And that's the person that gets the
Yeah.
interaction. Do you see that a lot?
You do. And I don't know, Twitter, most of the people, like, not, I shouldn't say most people, some of the people on Twitter have, like, they feed off of it. They feed off of the negativity. They feed off of whatever, how many likes or whatever they can get on
Yeah.
a negative post, or how many people they can make mad, or how many people, like, I can't tell you how many times I would see, oh, so and so blocked me, and it was like a reward for them.
Yeah, like a scalp or something.
Yeah. I mean, for me, my little soft heart, I'd be so sad if someone blocked me.
Or it'd be for like days going, why did they block me?
So,
Yeah.
it's just, I don't know if it's just, I think sometimes it's, they're not happy in their life offline.
Yeah.
They're missing something. There's a void there.
They're not getting likes in their real world. Like when
Yeah.
they're not getting likes, then they get that 1 or 2 dopamine rush of, oh yeah, I got like for this.
Oh, I'm getting attention. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. I always think it'd be funny. Imagine if real life was like Twitter. Like imagine getting blocked by somebody in real life, where you like one day you just walk in and you can't see, you just see a blur, and like they blocked you. Like, why did you block me?
Right. I know you're there. I just can't see you now.
I just can't see you. Why did you block me? Imagine being excited about that. Imagine being excited. They blocked me. I was such a jerk that this guy blocked me. I'm like, yeah,
you were so that you had to be blocked so they couldn't see your negativity anymore. Like, oh no, I just
yeah. It's kind of like, I always do the analogy, like it's like walking into Burger King and yelling at everybody saying McDonald's is better,
right,
and not buying anything and then just leaving. It's like you physically walked into Burger King,
took
time out of your day to tell everybody in Burger King that they suck and McDonald's is better, and not buy anything. It's like, okay.
Like it was such a wasted effort.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the people who are in Burger King or that work at Burger King, they really don't care that you came in so mad about whatever. And it's, what did you get? What did you gain from that?
I got like real life likes. I got likes on that. Look at me. Look how important I am.
That's definitely not me, and that's just not. I want to spend my time on stuff that matters. So
yes, like family, entertainment, things that bring you joy.
Yes,
absolutely. Now, you being my sister from the mystery, you probably kind of know. You and Deb know my secret. I'm team heel, but I'm a little bit of a teddy bear. I'm a little softy, and I tend to wear my emotions on my sleeve, but I try to use levity and whatnot. And I found that that positivity is as contagious as negativity. And I feel like sometimes the more positive you are, that also can be contagious. Would you agree?
I would. There's people in my life that I've been around, and they're grumpy at best, and when they tell me, like, when you come around, it's like you just bring this sunshine with you, and so it does lift people's moods when you're a nice person and you're a happy person. I don't know. I feel like sometimes it has to take more effort to be a grumpy person than it does to be a good person or a nice person. I just, I'm looking outside and I see my trees and like the birds, like, I don't know. It just like, there's joy in that. And like, people miss it. They do. They miss it by being so grumpy and being so negative all the time.
There's something to gratitude,
For sure.
I feel like, and I know that sometimes I'm both an optimist, but also I'm a cynic, and that's a lethal combination sometimes.
Sure.
But but there's a difference. Like there's a difference when somebody's like telling me some cheesy advice that they don't even really believe, or they're just because they heard it somewhere else. Like, you should have more gratitude, and you really kind of like, oh, you just read that in some help book or something. But when people generally talk about gratitude and being grateful for what they do have, count your blessings, that kind of, when I start thinking about that, I feel better. I start going, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I stubbed my toe, but I'll get over it. I've got a lot of good things going on. Or, hey, this thing didn't work out, but look what I do have.
I stubbed my toe, but I didn't break it off.
Yeah, exactly. Could have been a lot worse. And, me. I also feel like you and I, we're very similar in that we're very caring people, and we we really want people to be happy. I do sometimes feel like on social media, and I've fallen for this before, and I wonder if you have, where sometimes I think people kind of flaunt. There's a difference between people that are truly suffering with mental health issues, and then there's almost the attention seekers.
Right.
And I've fallen for it where people, I almost feel like the more you talk about how depressed you are on social media, it tends to be, and I'm not saying every case, but at that point, if you're constantly talking about how miserable you are on Twitter, you need to probably seek some professional help. But I feel like some cases, it's more like people, they want the attention. Like, it's like, hey, I complained about being bullied and I got all these likes last time, and sometimes, like, I've seen where like a well-known celebrity or a wrestler or a musician likes their thing and says, hey, you keep going. Right. And it's almost like that's enabling this person now every time they're feeling they want attention, they go, oh, I'm depressed today.
Yes.
Do you kind of see that?
I have seen that. And, that's one of the reasons why I kind of took a step back from Twitter was because, I guess by no fault of my own, I really do care about people. And when you don't know somebody very well, you kind of take what they're saying is, true. And it's like, oh, this person, is, they're struggling with this. And like, they told me that if this doesn't change tomorrow, they're going to hurt themselves. And like, oh, it's like, I get invested in people because I care about people. So I just feel like, and then it would be like, this person was like pouring their heart out to you. Right. And then the next day they're perfectly fine. And I'm like, well, how are you perfectly fine when, you were talking about killing yourself the day before? I don't get that. And then, it starts to dawn on you. You finally start figuring out it is about the attention, which I don't like attention. I don't want good attention. I'll just stand in the sidelines and cheer everybody on.
Yeah, hey, good for you. Don't look at me.
I have a core group of people that I will talk to and that know things and know personal things that I'm so grateful that I've met you and Deb. You're my people. So and there's I have a few other ones that I've met on Twitter that I'm still friends with.
Yeah.
But I would get so invested in people that it was just too much. It was just too much for me. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to take a little step back and get a different perspective for my own mental health.
Yeah.
But you do see it. You see people. And it's like the internet is a blessing and a curse, right? So if everybody just used it for something good, it would be fine. But they don't. They really don't. And then people will take the niceness that I try to put out there, the positivity, and twist it to their own.
Take it the worst way possible.
Yes, and I'm just let me take a little break here, and I know how to get a hold of you and Deb. I know how to get a hold of the other people that I love, and that's all I need for right now. So,
how did it feel when you stepped away from Twitter? Did you feel better? Did it take some time to really feel like, did you feel like anything was missing?
So the only thing that I really missed was the fact that there were a handful of people that really love to talk about the stuff that we like to talk about, right? The wrestling and the other sports and the other things. And so I missed that part of it. I missed just that basic communication about the things that I like. And that's really the only thing that I have missed and still miss to a degree. But people, it's just was such chaos all the time. It was not chaos. So I'm like, I don't miss that. I don't miss that at all. So
how different now? You have more of a presence now on Facebook. How different is Facebook than Twitter to you?
Facebook, I'm just friends with people that I actually know, that I have relationships with, that I've seen, that I've socialized with, family and that kind of thing. I don't have friend, you get weird friend requests, right? And I'm like, well, honestly, so I don't accept any of those. And it's, Twitter was, I went there, I interacted on Twitter specifically for certain reasons, like just the sports and like other things that I like. But Facebook is just more for me, because how I keep my account is easier to maintain mentally, because it's people that I know. It's people that I know love me.
It's more personal, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're not just some Twitter account in a sea of a bunch of people shouting at the same time. It's more of a personal interaction. I get that. I've tried to cultivate that too. Like I have two different personas. I've got, it's right here. I've got Mind Runner, and that's kind of my online persona. But while I was a public school teacher, I also had Mr. Burden. I had, I had to keep those people separate, because Mind Runner gets, what's going on? Whereas Mr. Burden has to be all right, everybody, this is the education, blah, 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 blah. I mean, even now I do the mental health podcast as Mind Runner, but on my other YouTube account, I have the Mr. Burden Educators podcast. And now, granted, they're slowly becoming the same person, whatever, but it is important, I think, to separate your personal from that environment. And that environment can get, a toxic environment, whether it's online or in real life, can really bring you down. Yes. And it's tough to really recognize those things, especially if it's like in a situation like where you're really passionate about wrestling, or you're passionate about crypto, or you're passionate about some game that you play. Like it could be The Sims, or it could be something else, and you find a community, but then that community turns toxic. Yes. And unless somebody posts Pentagon documents, nothing really, nothing, it becomes, it tears you down. And I think that's kind of a good reason. I think a lot of times people need to step away. I still go on Twitter, but it feels like trying to keep Twitter positive is an uphill battle. Mm-hmm. And I've tried to cultivate my list with, muting people that are really negative and just kind of trying to only focus on the positives, but that doesn't always happen.
I mean, that's like a job in itself, right? To go, and you have to go, like, if you really are passionate about keeping that muted list updated, you're adding people every day. So, it's.
Oh, and people are losing their minds on Twitter. I guess, was it yesterday? Elon Musk took away the blue check marks if you weren't paying the $8. So a lot of celebrities now no longer have their blue check marks, and people are losing it. And I'm kind of like, okay.
Your identity does not come from a blue check mark.
Yeah, I have a blue. Like imagine there. Let's go back to the real life scenario. What if you got a blue check mark badge that you walk into a restaurant? Oh, Mr. Burden, your blue check mark. You get to sit over here in the preferred seating. Right. You get to Lori, you don't have. Where's your blue check mark? Yeah, to the booth for you.
Go to the kitchen.
Yeah, you're right next to the dishwasher. Yeah, get over there.
I know, but at the end of the day, we're eating the same food, right?
Right. Yeah, we're using the same app, but blue check mark. Oh, look at me. And that's the other thing too, is it's kind of like, if you're interacting with the real person or not, because if you see Jericho 3169-4 and they have 2 followers, you're kind of like, it's probably not Jericho.
And I'm getting a DM from them like,
that's the worst. Like the DM from Michael Jackson. It's like, I'm not really dead and I want to send you my money. He.
You wonder what somebody's motive is. Is they thinking they're really going to get money, or are they just trying to get like a reaction out of you?
I think it's a numbers thing. I think that I think some of them are just trolling, but for them, I think a lot of those scammers, they prey upon, I mean, let's be honest, they prey upon this more senior folks that aren't as tech savvy. Yeah. They prey upon, if they send 1,000 of these scam emails or scam messages and get one person to fall for it, they've won. Mm-hmm. So then do it 2,000 times, you're going to get 2. Yeah. So I think they just play the numbers, and it's sad that that's where they are, and we can get into the whole thing about it, economy and whatnot. But it's like, I think in a lot of cases it's either a desperation or it's a culture thing. It's how much can I scam people. I almost feel like society for a while, particularly in like the early 2000s, when movies like, you had Glengarry Glen Ross, Wall Street, Boiler Room. There were a lot of movies that came out that were really, and I'm not saying Marxism or capitalism or anything like that.
Sure.
But there seemed to be a push with like almost a glorifying how much you can take advantage of a customer, how much you could take advantage of the other guy.
Right.
And it seemed to me like especially movies like Boiler Room, they missed the point. It's like, that's not healthy.
No, not at all. Right.
And I think that seems to be a mentality that we might be paying for now.
It is, and like I'm almost kind of paranoid. Like today, Freddie got this weird notice from PayPal about our PayPal account being negative, and I'm like, I've never gotten something like that ever in my life from PayPal.
Yeah.
Don't do anything. Don't touch anything. Don't click anything. Let me look at it. And I don't know. It was something weird. It was a glitch. It was legitimately from PayPal, but fixed it. But it doesn't take much to copy and paste the little PayPal logo and put it in an email and send you this weird link that destroys your whole, computer or whatever. So it's scary because, you don't know. You never know what somebody's motive is.
Exactly. And I get still text messages saying my Netflix subscription is frozen. Subscription. I love it because they it's like, all right, at least try to spell subscription correctly before you try to scam me. But it is funny. But you imagine somebody, they're in a rush, they're busy, and maybe they're a bit financially insecure at the moment, and maybe they really think this is legit, and they click it. Yes. Well, they're done. It's like that's that one person out of 1,000, and that's all they need.
It is. It really, it's terrible. So I really do try to like look at things, like investigate those moments where I get like the weird texts or emails, and they're always fake, right? So they're always some kind of spam. But sometimes some of those people are pretty creative. They can make it look legit.
Yeah, they got the logo right, and they got all the things. I always try, whenever I get something like that, I always like step away from it and then go to the actual website where I have my account and see if I get a message from them there.
That's what I do too. I take the long way around, but at least I know you're
not fishing through somebody's thing. And I feel like, there seems to be, I wish people were more, as a whole, more critical thinkers too. And not just in, like watching out for scams, but I think an interesting thing came on. How do you feel about I don't want this doesn't have to be a political thing. It's more, I think, how there seems to be a much stronger lack of trust in media than there used to be. But I think that there's a lot of folks that they'll take an issue and they don't try to step back and really look at the whole thing, and that's regardless of political affiliation or whatever. But there seems to be a lot of folks that like tribalism. If you're familiar with tribalism, it's like people it's just like WWE. You see that with so many things where they want their side to win,
right?
And they cherry pick facts and they want to just fight instead of just, hey, I feel like most humans, we all really want the same thing. We get mired down in the stuff that really doesn't matter and forget who we really are.
Yes.
Would you agree about that? Or
I would. And it's funny, I'll just build off of your wrestling analogy, so we have the AEW, WWE kind of like whatever. People want to argue about what's better, what's got whatever, this, that, and the other. And it's almost the same thing as like politics in a sense where it's like, I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat, whatever. But at the end of the day, as a wrestling fan or as, somebody who is a citizen of our country, we want the same thing. We want our country to be stable. We want our country to thrive. So yes, both sides have different views, obviously, but don't be happy because like the Democrats won or sad that the Democrats won, whatever, be hopeful that something good's going to come out of it.
Yeah.
And people just spend so much time and they're so busy with trying to prove their point and why, whatever side is better than this side or that side. It's like, there's no better. There's no better. It's just two sides with different views. But I don't know why, like, we just can't come together and just build off of it and just build something great instead of just trying to tear everything down.
Exactly. Step back. We all want, we want shelter. We want shelter. We want security. We want to be, financially comfortable at least. We want to know that we're taken care of. And we may disagree on this or that, but that's not, I don't think that should be something to get into fights about.
No.
That's the open discussion. And a lot of the stuff I think is very nuanced. I don't think either side on any issue, or I don't think there's one side that's just a bunch of dummies.
Right.
But I feel like what's happened is back in the 50s, 60s, there was more trust in the media from the standpoint of, and there were only just a couple channels, but you kind of like, all right, you expected the news to tell you what's going on.
Tell you
and
right.
Exactly. And slowly what's happened, and you're working a 9-to-5 job, or you're working, if you're working at the power plant, or you're working in the coal mine, or you're working at the docks, you don't have time to now then go and look at 7 different news sources to find the truth.
Exactly.
And and plus, you have your support network, your group that you talk to, and if they all kind of have the same mentality, you already come in with your own bias, and so you're going to choose the news source that kind of feeds your own bias a little bit. And we're all biased, we're all human, but I feel like that's what's happened is the media has lost its trust, and a lot of folks don't have time to really do the nuanced work, and it's almost like now that's creating more of a conflict.
It really does. And I call everything that's all the news, I don't care what channel it is, if it's negative news, I call it all Fox News, right?
Even CNN is Fox News.
Yeah, all of that. So and I remember always when I would visit my dad, it would be on CNN. He was one of those people like who had to know what was happening or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of it became like this ratings thing, and like there's if you have like satellite TV, 50% of your channels are news stuff, right? So I don't care about first of all, I don't care about the news that much. But living so close to DC, even our local channels are so, mired up and saturated with all the political and all this, all that stuff. So I will just kind of like even take it down another notch, and like I follow like our county's sheriff's department page, and like so whatever news I need, I'll get from that kind of thing. So
that makes a lot of sense. In fact, it's interesting because that's healthier. You're focusing on, okay, what's really going to affect me?
Right.
Who cares about what's on the Bud Light can? I'm more concerned with, is there a maniac running around the Quickie Mart down the street?
Yes.
Or is there a 10-car pileup over on the interstate? I feel like people get outraged about stuff that really doesn't affect them.
Mm-mm.
And they're ignoring the stuff that actually does. Like, do you think that the people in East Palestine really care what's on the Bud Light can, or do they care about what's going on with our water? What's going on with this train accident? It's like,
I know, and like, I mean, and it's a Bud Light can. Just that whole thing just cracks me up because it was going on for days before. I was like, why is everybody talking about Bud Light? I was so oblivious to like what's going on. I finally had to ask, Angel, and she was like, oh, this everybody's acting like this or whatever. I'm like, oh, I'm glad I didn't know anything about it because
Well, now there are times to be upset with companies. Like when Butterfinger changed its recipe, I felt like that was a sacrilege.
Sure.
They tried to make it taste more peanut buttery. It tastes like monkey butt. I'm sorry. I hate it now. Not that I've had monkey butt before, but I just assume.
You just assume that's what it would taste like, right?
Yeah, that's what I assume. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a taste. No, but it is. I think that's healthier. Focus on, it's healthy to focus on the stuff that really does matter, that affects you.
Right.
Now, granted, I'm sure there's some things that happen, but but it's interesting too. Like, everybody gets gung ho about the presidential election, but nobody really gets gung ho about the other congressional elections, where they're the ones that really kind of are the ones
that make the changes that you see.
Yeah,
that really truly do affect you. So yes,
it's like pay a little more attention. And I kind of getting back to wrestling. Maybe I should put the wrestling thing on for a second, but that analogy too. It baffles me how if I say I like something that bothers somebody else, like, and I think it does kind of go back to that insecurity where, people like there's people that aren't really happy with themselves or they're not happy, so they want to take you down.
Right.
And I think that's and you're a great example of that because you're both an AEW and WWE fan.
Oh yes.
And which is great because and you're honest about like if you didn't like something, and there's a difference between saying I didn't like this versus that was sucked, AEW's going down or WWE's terrible. Yeah, that's different. And I feel like that's a struggle for some folks, but how do you do you see how ridiculous it is being an AEW and WWE fan? How does it feel to be both, and when you see all this fighting between both fan bases?
Well, first of all, I don't understand. I do understand the bickering back and forth just because people are human and they want to be heard.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why people choose. Like at the end of the day, I'm a wrestling fan. Like if there's like 6 dudes out in my front yard doing back body drops, I'm watching.
Yeah.
Like I watch indie stuff. I find stuff on YouTube. It's not. I don't care about brands necessarily. I care about the sport and just loving wrestling. I've loved wrestling since I was born. So I just feel blessed that I have more to watch. You know what I mean? Like it's like I have WWE and I have AEW, and then like MLW comes on a channel, and then like Impact, and I can watch wrestling 8 days a week, and I love it. I get that Vince McMahon probably is not a great person. I don't know him personally. I'm not going to judge him. I don't know what he does. So I'm not going to spend my time speculating on his evil ways. I don't care. So I don't get into that part of it. I don't get into botches and K-Fat, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I just love the product. I love when wrestlers have such a passion that you can see, and they love the business and they love the sport, and that's what I love. So WWE is, it's Monday nights used to be 3 hours of really bad wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Bad programming, and it's slowly starting to turn around and become what it used to be. But I just never understood why people you're limiting yourself of enjoyment.
Yeah, you're taking it away. It's kind of the same folks that don't watch Dark or Dark Elevation, and not because they don't have time or they missed it, but they refuse to watch it because it's the lesser show. I'm like, you're missing some bangers.
I know, but it's wrestling. You can't. How do you become a wrestling fan if you don't enjoy indie level products or indie level talent? And I don't get it. I don't understand why people.
I get where some folks might feel a little Stockholm Syndrome with WWE, and I get where
Sure.
some people are like, I stopped watching WWE long about, I'd want to say the early 2000s. I tried to get back into it around 2012, but it didn't pop for me like it used to. You know,
Sure.
I was big into, like, Stone Cold, The Rock,
Oh,
and
that was on a whole nother level,
oh,
right?
when Jericho left WCW and went to WWE, WWF, that was it. That was like, oh, this is my guy and everything.
Right.
And there was I was so into it, and then it lost. Of course, also life happens too, and I started fading away, and I became I was into like Survivor and Big Brother and all that, but AEW brought me back, and
Yeah.
because AEW was doing the stuff that I really like and new stuff. Like I never heard of the Young Bucks before,
Right.
but
Right.
I started watching Young Bucks and Kenny and Deb will tell you, up until AEW, she hated wrestling. She thought it was stupid.
Yeah.
And of course, she only would see it through the eyes of like her brother or people she
Right.
knew. And she tolerated me watching Dynamite every Wednesday,
Sure.
but she would hear Chris Jericho talk, or she'd hear Kenny Omega. She'd watch, and then she'd see, and I think it was watching the Lucha Brothers and the Young Bucks, and like it was Full Gear 2019.
Yeah.
We had a couple of my friends over, and we're watching Full Gear, and we got talking, and Deb was just locked in on the Lucha Brothers and the Young Bucks, and that hooked her. And then the main event was Kenny and Moxley, and that was it, done.
Right.
And so, and I almost feel like she's as much a mark as I am now, but it's great, that's the thing, is it's like the stuff that you like, whatever brings you joy, and for people to not like that, I don't waste time worrying about those folks, but it puzzles me how it bothers other people if you like something. Like, I'm not a big Bryan Danielson fan. I know I'm in a minority, but I'm not as much of a fan as him as many people. But I'm not going to sit there like, why do you like Bryan Danielson? Because that's silly. That's silly to me.
It is. And so many people would, make fun or poke, jabs or whatever if I would mention something about a WWE product. And I'm like, whatever, okay, I watch it.
You're betraying the AEW Legion or something. Yeah.
Like, no, there's plenty for everybody. Like, and I do. I watch it all. I always have. When I was a kid, it's funny. My dad liked technology, right? So one of his friends owned some kind of electronics store, and they bought he talked my dad into buying this like satellite system. So, but back in the day when I was a kid, they were like these NASA grade satellites you have in your backyard.
Yep.
Right. So we got every channel from here to Seoul, Korea. It didn't matter. We got everything. So, and it was funny because the TV guide was like that thick.
My uncle had one of those too. Yeah, that's awesome.
So my brother and I, we went through the TV guide and we were like, man, there's a lot of wrestling on. So we went through it one day, it took the whole day, and we marked every page. Like, we marked every page that had like some wrestling on it.
Yeah.
And I was able to watch wrestling, like world-class wrestling. That was my favorite when I was a kid. Like Kevin Von Erich, he's still in my heart. So
yeah, the Von Erich movie's coming out soon too.
Yeah. So, and I just feel so blessed that I've always been able to watch everything, like, Mid-South, and like, everybody's watched like the WCW that came on TBS at 6:05, right?
6:05, yeah.
So, and I have like memories, and like, my kids will ask me, Mom, do you remember this match? And I'm like, I sure do. And like, it's just, I don't know. I just feel very blessed to have been a wrestling fan my whole life.
Did you have a lot of friends that were wrestling fans, or is that hard to find?
I did not. as kids, it was just me and my brother, kind of. You know, we'd sit in the basement, and like when we watched World Class, it didn't go off to like 2 a.m. So like on Saturdays, we were watching wrestling from like 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. every Saturday. So people, I don't know, it's like they just didn't get it.
Yeah.
You know, kind of thing. Like, we don't understand why you like it so much. I'm like, I'm sorry that you don't understand. If you don't get it, you don't get it. But no, we didn't have a lot of friends that liked it like we did. So
I was the same way. Like a lot of my friends, they didn't understand when I'd buy a pay-per-view. You know, and it was like I didn't have that group to watch, or we did. You know, I'd have to go to like a place that was showing it to find other people that were into wrestling. You know,
well, you know what? The very first WrestleMania, when the pay-per-view thing started,
yeah,
you couldn't get it on your TV. You had to like go somewhere that they were showing it. So we went to like a local high school, and watched the first one. We didn't even get to watch. We didn't watch it at home. We had to go to like it was so bizarre. Like you had to buy tickets at the door and like.
I bet that was cool though.
Yeah, it was neat. Looking back now, I'm like, wow, it's really cool.
Have you ever thought about, or have you tried going like the fandom where they at the theater they'll do the pay-per-view, like they reached like I think the last few pay-per-views AEW, they'll be at a movie theater.
I've seen that, and the closest one to us was actually showing it the last time, but I don't know, there's just something about sitting on my couch.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, our concession stand is pretty good.
Right.
Here, at our house, and I know where the bathroom is. Yeah, it's kind of like, and our couch is pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
So even though you could have the reclining seats, but it's something about that having that home experience.
And it's like everybody, like Freddie, he loves wrestling. Like my girls are so into it, and like, and they're big Kenny and Bucks fans too. So, we always make a big deal. We make a bunch of food that we normally wouldn't eat. Drinks, and we we just love it. We just sit around and we just get excited, and we talk about it. And we have like our little, Faith always puts up like this little grid that you can pick your picks on, and we always have like a winner, and like, so it's just it's just fun.
Well, it's hard to beat the queen of picks, though. I gotta tell you.
Oh, I can't on that, so I can't.
she's a lifetime. So. I think that the Dukes of Dynamite have stopped that just simply because Deb was winning every time. Yeah, it's like she had the inside track with Tony.
Yeah, so that's what I told Freddie one time. I said, I'm just waiting for Deb's picks because I'm going off of
yeah. So. I purposely would like not see. I forced myself not to look at her picks because I wanted there to be some kind of I wanted there to be a challenge, and I'd always do a couple really off the wall picks.
Yeah, right?
Because I gotta put it all on 42, and just for that chance of a payout. But and it's a great feeling when your family supports something that brings you joy. How important is family, the family dynamic with mental health?
So for me personally, I feel like you will not survive mental health without a support system.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You cannot do it on your own. We were not to get biblical or spiritual or whatever, but God did not create us to live life by ourselves. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. So you have to have people. You have to have love around you. And for me, I can honestly say, like the last 3 years have been a struggle for me as far as like my mental health. And I would not have made it this far without my family, without people who support and encourage. It's just, I just don't see if people are struggling, how they can struggle alone, how they do it by themselves. And it's, it breaks my heart that people don't reach out because there is still such a stigma about mental health.
Yeah. One of the reasons I start this podcast, I feel like we were taught for so long to just bottle things up. Yeah. And like talking about mental health is almost a sign of weakness.
Yes. Yeah, and I really think, and like looking back, I really think my dad struggled with mental health. He was a alcoholic. He was an abusive alcoholic, and now knowing some things that I know, some things that I've been through, I see some of his struggles. I see like, oh, I wish I always say, I wish that I knew then what I know now. I feel like I might have been able to help him, or at least have a better compassion or understanding about what he's going through.
Mm-hmm.
But he was one of those men, that born in the 30s, that men don't cry, men don't,
Yeah. They
men don't
stand in the rain and yeah.
So he struggled, he struggled in it, I think it's the same thing with my brother and his addiction. Like, I think that's what he self-medicated. So, for me, it does take an effort to express things sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
when you're struggling. But I know I can go to like anybody in my little network and be like, this is happening, and talk to me, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful that I have people, and that people love me, and that they want me to be better and be, and to be well and be safe. And I'm so thankful for that. And I wish everyone had that network.
Freddie seems like a saint. Freddie seems very supportive.
Yes, he is. He's wonderful. Like, it doesn't matter. He'll drive, like, and he likes to stay busy. He likes to play in the garage and do his thing. But like, if I call him and say, "Can you come home?" Like, he's here in like 5 seconds. Like,
that's awesome.
So yes.
You mentioned your brother David. He passed for overdose, and there was that's kind of that self-medication, which again, a lot of times, with addiction, there is that whole mental health component. And how I mean, everybody's struggle is their own. I mean, it can't, it's futile to compare one person's struggle with another, but going through that has got to how was dealing with that and having the support network, but still it was such a tragedy. And on top of that, with everything all the administrative stuff you have to deal with too, with the passing sibling, how did that go for you?
Well, his addiction got worse after my dad had passed. He always lived with my dad. So I feel like, once my dad died, he felt like, oh, I don't have a babysitter anymore, kind of thing, and so it did get worse. We both had access to more money, more finances.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of lived in denial. I didn't live in denial. I was just ignorant to addiction, and like how desperate people can be to get what they need, and what they'll do and what they'll say. And like, I would believe everything you tell me. Right. So, but then I guess after, I would say, the last 2 years, I guess, of his life, I was like, well, unfortunately, I know what it actually is and how bad it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I would try to talk to him and try to say, your life could be so much better. Like, you could have, it could be this, that, I would, all of it. I would, be Miss Positivity. And it wasn't, wasn't registering in his, he just wasn't. So I would, for my own self, I had to distance myself from him and his lifestyle, because it was just, it would break my heart. I can't do that to myself, and I can't do that to the people who care about me. So, I was still a sister. I would still, if he would call me and say, I need this, I'd drop everything, I'd go do whatever. But as far as like socially, or like having a friendship, or having, thinking he's somebody I can depend on, like, no, I had none of that. And that part was hard. That was a mourning in itself. That was a whole process. So when he passed, you go through all these things like, well, maybe I should have tried harder, because like mentally I was in a better place than he was, or maybe I should have done something, or like whatever. Like we go through all this. So it's, I still have days where I'm like, I just miss him so much. And then like you get like sad or you get angry, you get whatever. But I have, I just keep going back to it, but I have such a support system. I have, my family, I have friends, I have people from church that are they're just rock stars in my life,
Mhm.
and without those people, I don't know. I don't know if I would have been able to put one foot in front of the other after he died. Because what's interesting is I'm the youngest of five, so and all of my siblings have passed. He was the last one,
Mm.
and they've all passed with some kind of like very tragic death.
Mm.
So so it's interesting. People say, I don't know
Yeah.
how you do it. I don't know how you do it. I'm like, well, part of me says I don't have a choice. I have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then another part of me is like, maybe I don't want to do it, but I have people who love me and that want me here and don't want me to hurt myself or in my life or whatever. So I choose to think of the good stuff.
Mm.
Choose to think of, I'm gonna wake up today and Freddie and I are gonna go, I don't know, play miniature golf or whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just, I still, I miss him. I do. It's just, I felt so lost, and I felt like everybody left me. That's why I had that feeling for a while. But I've been in therapy for a year. So for some other things, like I had panic attacks and other weird stuff, but I'm so grateful that was already in place before he died, because I had some tools already established.
Yeah.
So
that's something I think also in addition to the conversation about mental health, that it's seeking therapy is not a taboo. Like I think people used to talk about it. I mean, I see it as the equivalent of if your car is making a noise, you take it into the mechanic.
mm-hmm.
If you're struggling with something mentally, you go into the brain mechanic. And like you said, those tools, and I feel like it's tough to not have that instinct or knee jerk reaction to blame yourself or what could I have done differently. But in reality, it seems like with most cases of addiction, they've got to make the choice to get better.
Absolutely, 100%. Yes.
And it's really nothing you could do. You could do everything you can to try to fix the situation, but really it's on them.
Yeah, I'm a fixer, I guess, by trade. I am, and not necessarily be that if I see something wrong with you, I want to fix it because it needs to be fixed. No, I just want to help people, kind of thing. So I've learned through his journey and his addiction that you can't help somebody who does not want to help themselves.
Yeah.
Right. And I know that's cliche to say, but it's so true. And for a while, I just didn't accept that. I'm like, no. I'm like, he's going to take my help. Like I'm going to
he has no choice.
I'm going to fix this. So
yeah.
No, you can't fix it.
You also mentioned, in addition to your family support network, your church. And I think sometimes there's a lot of misconceptions with religion because sometimes, I mean, you hear about the corruption of a lot of organized religion, but I think sometimes, again, it becomes baby in the bathwater where people dismiss any religion because of the dogma or the corruption that they'll see, or they don't like one thing, so they dismiss it. But having a church support network, a genuine, where people are genuinely supportive, not that fake, oh, hey, sister, how are you? That kind of thing. Right. But, like a genuine support network, I think is very important. And
it is. And I've known I'm so blessed because I've known my pastor as long as I've known Freddie. I met him the same night I met Freddie.
Oh, wow.
I've known him. Yeah. So, and to see him journey to where he is just it's it's inspiring. And am I intimately friends with everyone I go to church with? No,
No.
no, I'm not. I have 5 people that I could tell the deepest, darkest secrets to, and I know that it sticks with them. So, but those 5 people are like part of my oxygen.
Yeah.
So yeah, my inner circle.
Inner circle. I was just gonna say, yep.
It's not a big inner circle, but it's I know that the people that are in it are people that I can depend on and trust and love, and I get it. It goes both ways. So, but yes, I I think for me, like being in church and being such a big part of our lives, it's helped in so many things. Everybody says, "Oh, well, once you hit the bottom, that's when you go to church. When something terrible happens, that's when you go to church." Well, when we started going to church, our lives were good. We had a nice house, the kids were great, we had great jobs, but it was what came after that. Like my mom died, I had to have surgery. It was like all these things that if I didn't have church and God in my life, it would have been like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I've been completely lost. So yeah, it's just, I don't know.
I feel like people discount the stability of a church support network of religion, and I think that whether you're Christian or and there's so many different sects. There's the Presbyterian, Episcopalian, Methodist, Catholic. There's all the Jehovah's Witness, and then on top of that, I feel like we as humans desire we need some kind of structure, and we like a belief system, and I feel like God is kind of in everything, and it just a lot of times it's like when you try to do something on your own, and especially when you worry about things that are beyond your control.
Right.
And I feel that really that it's like you're wasting your energy worried about stuff like that. And
yeah, but when I was younger, everything was a big deal to me. Everything, right? Especially with my kids, and like I would like you'll understand what I mean. I would be like the first day of school or whatever, the first opportunity I had to talk to their teachers, I would warn them. I'm that parent. I look at everything.
Oh boy.
I question everything. Like, and I was fully engaged in everything that they did in school. And then and like I would get upset if they got like a C or like whatever, and I'm like, well, what happened here? And then I finally just was like, you know what? I'm basically killing myself.
Yeah.
Worrying about everything. So I'm like, I kind of started just to let things go as they got older. And like I'm like, I can't go to college with them, right?
Yeah, imagine that.
University with them. So I was
Professor, who's that sitting next to you? Oh, that's my mom. You're raising her hand.
I found a balance with that. They still know that they are the number one people in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I will do everything in the world I can for them. And if there's something they're doing I don't like, they know I'm going to say something. But they're their own people.
Yeah.
And I had to let them do that. So once I'm committed to saying, okay, you're the one in school. So if you're the one that gets really bad grades and have to repeat the 8th grade, that's on you. So,
yeah.
But of course they never did. But anyway, but it was a relief. You could actually feel like the weight coming off, and like the breathing better, and just having a better perspective, and having more time mentally to think about other things that really do matter. So it is it's good to release that control that you think you have, right?
Yeah. That you really don't.
No, you don't.
And focus so there's some advice for everybody. Worry more about the sheriff's department website than the national news.
Yes, absolutely.
Unless you live in East Palestine, focus more on what's going on at Main Street and rather than
you could pray for things. You could wish, hopeful that things turn around, but like me being verbally abusive or mean or negative on social media is not going to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I found even with religion that tribalism sometimes comes out. Like I've met some people that are like, and it seems to be like on going back to Twitter, if you say anything religious, there seems to be a bit of a hoity-toity, like, oh, you believe in God?
You're one of those, right?
But what's funny is like a lot of times, but what's funny is not everybody, but I've seen people that are profess themselves to be atheists, but they're devout atheists, and which sounds is an oxymoron, but it's almost like it's that same kind of like this. Okay, this person over here believes this. I'm going to look down on them, and it's like, well, how do you know you're right? Like, what is your gig here? And why are you trying to tear them down? It's almost like to justify their own feeling. And it's funny how even atheism can kind of become its own religion.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's funny. People will, if they find out like you are, you're involved in church, you go to church or whatever, it's like sometimes people's outlook changes, and like you can honestly almost physically see like the judgment on their faces.
Yeah.
Right? So, and it's like, part of me thinks sometimes that people judge other people who are in church because they honestly know that they need something better in their life that they don't have. So, I let people say, do what they want to do, but for our family, we have benefited so much from being a part of church and being a part of, believing in something that's bigger than me.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm blessed, and it's because of God. I was at a very low point, and I prayed to just find somebody that gets me. I was, relationship after relationship was just terrible, and it just was like, oh. And then I met Deb, and she at the same time, she prayed for, she wanted to be happy, and boom, she met me right after that, and it's very divine, and the way we met each other was such a happenstance. Chance. It wasn't like this constant thing. It was like we just happened to meet each other, and it's great. And I think that sometimes people, like you said, there's something missing in their life, or they want to feel like they have a better grasp on things than other folks. And I can see sometimes too people being worried. It's just like with anything, with any fandom, or with any like sports team or politics, when the worst of a group is highlighted and then paintbrush to say this is how they all are. Like if all churches, if people saw all churches as the Westboro Baptist Church,
right,
then you're going to have this negative taste in your mouth. It would be the same as, like, for example, this is a Nacho Man Shane. He's our friend that comes over Wednesday nights for Dynamite. He's also the producer of our podcast.
Him, right?
He is a vegan. His whole family are vegans. Now, he's not an in-your-face vegan. We sit there and we'll eat ribs in his face. Like, we'll sit there and eat a steak. He doesn't care. It's not because that's that whole thing. It's not. He's not eating the meat.
Right.
That's his own personal choice. He doesn't sit there and lecture us. He doesn't sit there and do all this like, oh, you're having that, I'm going to enjoy my tofu taco. He doesn't do any of that. Now, what's interesting though is his sister-in-law a couple times has tried to sneak meat to him to try as like a prank, and that's an awful thing to do. But she's kind of actually like being the awful person. And she's projecting like she's like, how dare you, almost like projecting like he's living his life,
right?
And she's almost projecting that or anticipating that he's being preachy just by being vegan, and he's not. He doesn't take that stance. But my reaction when I first found out he was vegan, I was waiting for the spiel,
right?
Because what do you hear? when you think of someone that's vegan, my first thought is somebody going, that's actually killing animals.
Yeah, very pretentious kind of, yeah.
And I always, have you ever seen the movie Always Be My Maybe? It's Ali Wong, and I forget who the guy actor he was an agent of Shield and stuff, but he was an Ant-Man. But the story was funny. She goes out on a date with Keanu Reeves.
Okay.
And they go to this restaurant where they serve the meal, but they give you headphones and you listen to the screams of the animal that you're eating while you eat it. And it's so funny because Keanu's like eating a steak and he's hearing this cow go like in screaming in pain. He's like, "Thank you for your sacrifice," and like this. And then it cuts to Ali Wong, and she's hearing these dying chickens, and she's just like eating like crazy. It's a funny scene, but to me, it's just kind of funny how that happens. But yeah, I kind of, with the point I guess I was trying to make before that tangent is, I think that sometimes people, and it goes with fandom and it goes with a lot of things, is they tend to take one example, the worst example of a group, and assume that everybody in that group is that way.
Yes.
It's, churchgoers. Well, they're all these religious zealots because that one person was crazy. Or Democrats are all these crazy people because of this one person. Or Republicans are all wearing Ku Klux Klan hats because this. And I wish I wish people were a little more skeptical of that kind of thing, because I think that's what that really contributes to dividing us as a society.
Well, yeah, and I think just a little less judgment.
Yeah.
Like, don't just assume you have a Renegade's hat on. Don't just assume that, you're some sort of person who is pro vigilante.
Yeah.
Right. So of course I know what
I just like them twins. That's all.
I know what the hat means, but people be like, what are you doing? Like, I have a shirt on that says Bordello with the rainbow. Like, they be, like, she likes the gays. Like, well, I love.
Where's your Bud Light there, Lori?
So I just love people. I don't question anybody's sexuality. I don't question anybody's way that they think. I question how you treat other people.
Exactly. Martin Luther King's dream. It's like, I think a lot of people miss it's what's inside. It's the content of your character. Like, if the way you live your life, as long as it doesn't like hurt, like affect me, if it's not like, like within reason, like if you're a cannibal and you're gonna come into my house and try to eat me, that's different. But that's extreme. What I'm saying is, like, you live your life, and as long as it's you let me live mine, we're good. And try to be a good person. Try to be positive. Try to be helpful. Don't be a jerk out there, people.
Yes.
And I think that goes for ourselves too. We need to give ourselves a break. I think most people need to cut themselves some slack. I don't know if you'd agree, but I think sometimes people are way too hard on themselves, and then they really should be.
Yes, I do agree with that, and that is one thing that, like, is big in, like, my therapy sessions for myself personally, because I want everything to be perfect. Not like hair, makeup, clothes, all that stuff. I want, like, my house to be right. I want everybody, all my ducks in a row. And then, like, you base your mood off of whether or not you're succeeding in that.
Yep.
And I'm getting to the point where I'm like, well, I don't really care about that. So,
yep.
I'm like, and then you're talking about, like, other people's, like, negativity around you, and, like, there's people in, like, on Freddie's side of the family, they're very gossipy people. Very cynical, very like, oh, I knew that they were going to fail at that, blah, 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 whatever. So I don't engage. I never do. And, like, I was talking to somebody in the family one time, and like she's the same way I am. And she's like, well, why? She goes, it's wild how you are just so completely different. I'm like, you know what? Your business is your business. As long as it doesn't prevent me from putting my feet on the floor or keep me from breathing or it harms my kids in any way, I don't care what you do.
Yep.
Like, I'm not going to judge what you do. Like, we've all made mistakes. We've all done some crazy things in our lives. And so we all have regret. And
not me.
No, never.
Not at all.
So I don't judge what people do. I don't. Yeah, if they're hurting themselves, I try to take a different approach. But as far as like a harsh judgment, that's not my job. It's not our job as humans to judge other people. It's our job to love one another.
Excellent. And you know what? That should be the takeaway. It's not our job to judge each other. It's our job to love one another.
Yes.
And this, to quote the great RJ City, Lori, this has been a romp. Yes. This has been a romp through a cherry blossom garden of positivity, rainbows, and positive mental health.
Yay.
And I wish and pray all the best to you. This has been great. And thank you again for joining me for Mental Health Monday.
Yes.
Over an hour. I'd love to have you come back again. And, you know, don't tell the Dukes, but there's a possibility that a wrestling podcast starring me might be coming down the pike at some point. I'd love to have you on.
Oh, anytime. Yeah, I would.
I think that'd be a lot of fun. We could talk AEW and a little WWE or indie wrestling. Oh, no. None of that. We can't have that. But no, I think this has been fantastic. And thank you again for joining me. I love a lot of the stuff that we were saying, that you were talking about, and insights. Any final words of wisdom to everybody out there that's listening?
I would just like to encourage people to just take a different path than the negativity street, right? I would like to sometimes it's a habit that you have to form, but it's so much better living in a positive light than it is to be in the darkness. So always choose positivity. Always, always, always.
Always choose positivity. And with that, on behalf of Lori Young, this is Mind Runner, my sister from another Mr. Lori Young. Thank you for tuning in. This has been Mental Health Mondays, and have a great week or not. It's your choice.
Okay.
Catch new episodes of Mental Health Mondays every Monday morning at 7 a.m. Start your week off with a smile and some inspiration.